the experience of having burnout or like reaching your limit, maybe burnout's not even the right word anymore, like teaches you something about your process. Like maybe is it like that I'm like, am I inefficient, or is there something I need to change, or is this actually the way I get things done? Like, is it that I'm more productive if I do an all-nighter, if I'm in flow and like I want to keep on going? And knowing that I think maybe the core things that keep you thriving as a human being are looked after, like sleep and rest and like human connection and nature. If all of those other parts of you, those needs are met, the ability to work at a high level is going to be possible at some time.
I also wanted to ask, I mean, you've mentioned it in a couple of other interviews about the burnout, but uh, I don't want to go into details because, you said it so many times and in so many different interviews. But what I'm interested as someone who has a tendency towards, overworking himself. And there's so many other artists as well, and designers and typographers and everything. What's your, I don't know, did you find a secret to stop the burnout, to see it before it happens and to just stop it right there?
I think I'm in a good spot now with making peace with burnout and seeing it in a different perspective. And I think maybe that the experience of having burnout or like reaching your limit, maybe burnout's not even the right word anymore, like teaches you something about your process. Like maybe is it like that I'm like, am I inefficient, or is there something I need to change, or is this actually the way I get things done? Like, is it that I'm more productive if I do an all-nighter, if I'm in flow and like I want to keep on going? And knowing that I think maybe the core things that keep you thriving as a human being are looked after, like sleep and rest and like human connection and nature. If all of those other parts of you, those needs are met, the ability to work at a high level is going to be possible at some times. And I think where I'm at now is like knowing that I like intensity, and sometimes that will be the intensity of work. And I just deal with it in a different way. Like I don't crumble as much as I used to. It used to be like the end of the
Okay.
world. Whereas now I'm like, okay, this is what's happening. And I kind of know which parts of my life need to tweak, or change. And it's almost like you're increasing your challenge level and figuring
Yeah,
out
yeah.
what works for you. But it takes sometimes learning the hard way to get to that point. And another thing I experienced was, burnout often came out as a result of like probably just doing too many projects, like overcommitting, overbooking beyond your resources or means as a person working. And so you find different ways, like, is it you get an assistant to help with this, or like which parts do you do, which parts do you not do? Um, or is it that you're increasing your threshold for discomfort and
Yeah.
getting perspective of like what it all is? And I think, you can be burnt out from working too much, but then if you're working too little, you can be bored and understimulated, and you
Yeah.
might still be having an uncomfortable experience. So it's about like finding that sweet spot. And yeah, and also like remembering to enjoy the process when you're in it, and knowing that if you look after the times that you need to create, you're going to have a more enjoyable experience, because no one really loves working when you're feeling burnout. So sometimes you
Yeah,
need a
yeah.
holiday, sometimes you need a new job, sometimes you just need like one good night's sleep and you can go again.
Yeah, yeah. How much studying philosophy and neuroscience and everything help you in these thoughts and these
Mm.
new ways of thinking?
In a weird way, I actually think like what I did notice in London when I was studying, because I was still doing a few illustration commissions, was rather than actually applying what I was learning to my life, it was more the fact that a part of my brain was engaged and stimulated, that it meant that when I had to go back to do creative work, I felt fulfilled that I could switch between those two things. I think what I'm learning is probably more interesting to share for other people. I find that sometimes when I study things too much, it's actually harder to apply it to myself. Like it's like
Okay.
when a chef makes an amazing meal for someone else and they come home and eat McDonald's for dinner.
Yeah, yeah.
It's more that I think what I've learned, like I'm studying flow state, and I'm reading all these different papers from like a neuroscience perspective, from like qualitative studies with artists. But when I learned the most lessons about flow state was when I was in my studio experiencing it and reflecting on it in my own way. And now it's almost like going to the next level of analysis so
Yeah,
that I
yeah.
could explain it to different people or talk about it. But I don't know if it helps me to do it. Like, you
Okay.
don't want to
Okay.
dissect the frog too much. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. And is this something you are going to talk about in your future conferences or?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely going to. I've been doing smaller kind of like salon style talks over the last few months just to get feelers from designers to see if there's an appetite of interest for it.
Yeah,
And it
yeah.
seems like people are interested. So I'm just going to test the waters and see. And I think also with AI being such a huge thing that we're thinking about and using, to think like about flow state, which is essentially like an optimal conscious experience or unconscious experience of being a human, doing, having, and making, that it will become more important to reflect on those moments when we feel like engaged and alive and focused and creating something, compared to using tools that might make things more convenient but less enjoyable in the process. But all shall be explored and revealed as I start to, write the talk.
Yeah, yeah. No, I absolutely agree. It's definitely an interesting topic, and especially for creative people who know how does it feel to be in that flow state. So
Mm.
I can imagine it's quite interesting. Um, I mean, I'm jumping from these topics like one of the university, then the work and everything, because there are so many things about you, so many things I want to ask you, and the time is always limited, especially since you've done so many things. But um, what does a flow state look like to you? Like, how do you feel in your studio? When does it come? How does it,
Mm.
work?
Yeah. Well, if I think back to the most memorable flow experiences, part of it is that it is like a forgetting of yourself. You're fully absorbed, you feel at one with what you're doing, that you almost lose sense of time and you forget yourself and you become one with what you're doing. For me, it usually comes about by surprise when I've reached a point in the creative process where like maybe a number of the initial steps have been done. So I've been sketching, and I'm painting, but there's still like that right balance of challenge that you can't like completely zone out. Like sometimes I'll paint murals and the design's done and I'm just filling in the outlines, and that I can listen to an audiobook and kind of disengage. But it's in those moments where like you're actively figuring something out. So maybe like painting a gradient, painting something I've never painted before, or doing life drawing where I'm observing a model and I'm trying to represent it accurately, and it requires looking and translating and drawing, and you have to be like really in it. So you're really there's that effortlessness, but you're still engaged. So it might happen if I'm designing a poster or doing a painting, but it's different to when you're scrolling on your phone and you're
Yeah.
completely escaping, but you don't
Yeah,
feel
yeah.
like you have like a sense of agency or control. And a lot of the like writings about it describe it so beautifully as this like cascading of like learning or like doing better than you expected. And it's almost like it could be seen as a positive, like flourishing state. Um, Even just the other night, like I don't know if I was in flow state, but it was the first time in a long time where I stayed up really late into the night. I was drawing these letter forms for a calligraphy project I'm working on, and I was just sitting there drawing like in a it's just with a pencil, and it was really simple. But there was something about it that felt the closest in a long time to being actively, I don't know, really engaged with it. There were no distractions. That's another thing. Like, if you get distracted, it can interrupt that. And I think that feeling of being focused now is so sought after because it's just so easy to be distracted that
Yeah.
you've got to create the conditions for it to like come about naturally. And that may be more challenging than we know.